All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a look at a universally recognizable and, frankly, incredibly chaotic toxic management style, the notorious pointy-haired manager, or PHM. But we're doing something a little bit different. We're analyzing this through the fascinating lens of classical Eastern philosophy. We're going to break down how the deep structural dysfunction of an IT department literally mirrors ancient concepts of ego, ignorance, and illusion. Sound crazy? Just wait.
So, here's our roadmap for the journey. We've got 4 major philosophical pillars to cover. Ahamkara, or ego and control, Avidya, representing ignorance and deflection, Maya, the illusions of productivity, and finally karma, where we'll look at the gaslight loop and figure out how to actually achieve karmic liberation in this wildly toxic IT ecosystem.
First up, the corporate veils. To really get a read on this environment, we have to look at the blinding architecture that's deliberately designed to mask what's actually going on. This isn't just about bad management. It's about an environment engineered for pure confusion.
Picture this. You walk onto the main floor, and it is plagued by this intense, blinding window glare. Honestly, it feels like it's designed to keep the staff from seeing management coming. Add in these low-flying drones buzzing around, delivering massive tracking spreadsheets, and you've got a structurally toxic workplace. The environment itself is basically a weapon of disorientation.
Okay, let's move on to our first philosophical lens, Ahamkara. This concept perfectly captures the driving force behind PHM's absolutely wild dictates.
So, what is Ahamkara in a corporate setting? Well, it manifests as an unchecked runaway ego. In this department, the manager operates under the stubborn assumption that she possesses superior knowledge over all end users and developers. And because of that, she demands absolute control and refuses to consult anyone before making massive structural changes.
Her ego leads to these arbitrary, genuinely destructive decrees. For instance, she created a sprawling 800-column activity task list that absolutely no user ever asked for. 800 columns. She also forced staff into 9 grueling working sessions in 2022 just to discuss a custom ISIS spreadsheet that had literally zero to do with the eSearch project they were supposed to be working on. She randomly orders database changes too, like arbitrarily merging 2 databases for eSearch out of nowhere or moving tables around for the second stop application just to leave her mark. She even maliciously yanked a senior developer, Robert's server access to Peer 1 Manager without telling him, only to quietly restore it 6 months later. It is just raw, unmerited dominance.
And that brings us to Chevron, a developer who frequently ends up in the crosshairs. During a hijacked meeting on June 10, 2025, PHM's ego was desperate for a target. So she loudly whined and threw these completely false accusations at Chevron, claiming he hadn't finished his PDF conversion tasks. But here's the reality. Chevron had actually finished all 43 of his assigned PDFs in about 2 hours over his weekend, days before the meeting even happened. The proof was right there in the folder. But checking facts doesn't really serve the ego, does it?
This leads us right into our next concept, Avidya. This perfectly explains how PHM masks her profound lack of technical knowledge through aggressive deflection.
Avidya essentially means technical blindness. Because she has a profound lack of functional comprehension, she is forced to aggressively project her technical failures downward. She doesn't understand the systems, so she constantly deflects and blames the developers who are actually doing the work.
Let's look at some specific tactics. When she didn't understand the GPG encryption being used in the eSearch project, she completely deflected by asking totally irrelevant questions about SQL server versions to hide her ignorance. Or how about when intern training accounts broke daily because they were being wiped out by a standard production database restore? She pretended she had absolutely no idea why the accounts were broken, feigning ignorance just to avoid having to fix her own broken process.
This creates the ultimate gaslight loop. Get this. Robert once returned from lunch to a frantic chat message from his coworker Megalice. During their daily stand-up, PHM had completely misunderstood how a database worked, claimed she made changes based on Megalice's input, and when everything broke, her conclusion was just, well, you didn't explain things correctly. Management's failure to understand basic IT instantly became the developer's communication failure. Unreal.
Our third veil is Maya. This is all about the illusions of productivity, and how executives are tricked into seeing massive progress where none actually exists.
PHM is a master weaver of corporate Maya. She constructs these elaborate, superficial frameworks of vaporware and performative tracking mechanisms. It's all deliberately engineered to maintain her leverage and completely hide the fact that no real work is being done under her guidance.
These illusions are everywhere you look. She forces developers to populate 100-column daily tracking spreadsheets that she never, ever uses. She engineers fake paper trails, like abruptly reassigning Chevron to the dormant Peep Tom dashboard and BOA dashboard projects. Why? Simply to deceptively sideline him from the e-paperware project while pretending he's just too busy. She even held the eCerts project in a user acceptance testing holding pattern purely to hide the fact that her own automated description process was completely broken. Oh, and she created a purely performative, fake training session for the interns, letting it fail due to those broken accounts just to generate a progress report. It's all smoke and mirrors.
And because this environment prioritizes illusion over reality, actual incompetence is completely protected. This corporate Maya forces the developers to shoulder the institutional liability for highly paid incompetent consultants. Take Snotty, for example. This guy sat around for 5 months listening to loud music and browsing expensive real estate, producing literally 0 web forms. But under the veil of Maya, the real workers take the fall.
Now we shift to karma. Let's look at how these veils directly entangle and psychologically exhaust the people on the floor.
In this ecosystem, karma isn't some mystical idea. It is your operational reality. It's all about how insulated you are from the chaos. Let's contrast 2 developers, Megalice and Robert. Megalice is a diligent developer who quietly fixes bugs and implements complex features, like the file upload designer for the Second Stop application. She does her work and she leaves for the day. But structurally, she's still bound to PHM's ego. Megalice experiences severe anticipatory anxiety anytime PHM attends her meetings, even though she has 0 anxiety with anyone else. The psychological weight is so heavy that she gets stressed even when PHM sits there and says absolutely nothing at all.
And why does that happen? Because of the heavy burden of unliberated karma. Megalice knows that any systemic misunderstanding by PHM will inevitably be twisted into a trap. So just the mere silence from a manager holding unmerited authority over her career creates a toxic, psychologically unsafe atmosphere. She is fully entangled in that gaslight loop.
But there is a way out, which brings us to achieving karmic liberation, brilliantly demonstrated by our other developer, Robert.
The contrast here is absolutely vital. While Megalice is trapped and emotionally vulnerable to the illusion, Robert neutralizes the toxicity entirely through detached, independent action. He literally just steps completely outside the illusion. He completely refuses to participate in the Maya.
When PHM tries to throw down roadblocks, Robert just seamlessly circumvents them. Those useless 100-column spreadsheets, he totally ignores them. When PHM maliciously yanked his access to the Peer 1 manager server, he didn't panic, he simply redirected the task to a supervisor, U2, bypassing her sabotage entirely. And crucially, he casually informed the end users that his access was taken away just in case there was an issue, brilliantly covering his own tracks. When she pulled his access to the stage database for the eSearch project, he just moved the databases to his local laptop and kept right on working. When she wasted everyone's time with that irrelevant ISIS spreadsheet, he ignored it. When she gave him a fake copy of the latest ETS version, he just went and got the real one from another developer. By detaching his emotional response and focusing purely on the technical reality, Robert renders her ego-driven roadblocks completely powerless.
Ultimately, when you're faced with an architecture built entirely on ego, ignorance, and illusion, fighting back only tangles you deeper in the manager's karma. The absolute only way to survive and thrive is to stop participating in the mirage altogether. So, I'll leave you with this to think about. In your own professional life, when you are faced with performative chaos, will you succumb to the corporate illusion, or will you engineer your own karmic liberation?